Who is the absolute craziest person that you personally know? My dad's best friend who lived next door to us. One day he proposed to his girlfriend, and when she said no, he shot her with a shotgun. That's crazy. How did your dad react? He cried, because he was also good friends with his girlfriend. He knew them both from high school. None of us knew he was capable of something like this. It was a huge shock. We only spoke with him once since it happened. He called and asked for us to come visit him a few years ago. My dad told him to go F himself and hung up. We lived right next door to the affected family. They were pretty normal, except their kids were very spoiled and never listened. I live in a higher-end subdivision in a small town, so that sort of thing was normal. The wife was a teacher and the father did something in management for a chemical company. Both made good money and just seemed like normal, clueless rich parents. So the guy ended up getting laid off from his job, for reasons unknown to me, and started drinking. He became super irresponsible, and the wife divorced him because of this. However, she still lived with him because she had nowhere to go. After this, he actually started to clean his act up and look for work. Now comes the challenging parts. He started taking long trips to random foreign countries for supposed work. This continued for around 3 or so months. Afterward, we learned that he had met a girl over there and those were the reason for the trips. Finally, he stated that he had a girlfriend, even though he was still living with his wife. They hadn't even had a legal divorce yet, as he refused to sign the papers. I honestly think he just sort of snapped. But at this point in the story, he still seemed normal, just blowing off steam from all that happened. Late one night, around 2 to 4 a.m., we get a knock at our door, and police officers barge in asking questions about Chad. That's when we learned the wife had drowned in the bathtub. She had been soaking for around 3 hours when the police found the body. So he gets taken to jail and questioned, deemed safe to the public based on current evidence. He stayed in a hotel while they swept his house for clues. After a week, they were finished, and they wanted to put him in jail for the evidence they had processed so far: small bruises on the back of her neck, lack of emotion about the whole ordeal. I have no idea how he got out of it, but he was allowed freedom with the evidence processed so far. That's when he came to us and talked to us about the possibility of defending him if it came down to it. My mom just knew that he did it, but I was still skeptical. When I talked to him, he told me that he didn't do anything wrong and told me what happened that night. Apparently, she got out of bed, and he could sense that she was gone too long, which is why he woke up and alerted the police. That's when I said I'm sorry about the situation, and he just said, well, win some, lose some, and walked off. That's when things clicked, because he never was upset over his wife's unalive, and I had that moment of realization. He started drinking and partying heavily about a month after this happened. Brought his kids to a bar around noon one day, and they wandered off down the street. A cop picked them up, and he was deemed unfit to care for his kids, so we took care of them for around 4 months. This is when new info started rolling in. Now we learned he was dating this girl in a foreign country. They found bits of his DNA underneath her fingernails, and the bathtub also had his DNA. He stated in the police report he was nowhere near the bathtub, also did not move her. They found him playing video games when they busted in, never showing signs of emotion hysteria. Bruises matched his finger size on the back of her neck. He had definitely done it at this point. They arrested him at $5 million bail, and the court date has not yet happened. I'm not sure if I'll be a witness or not. I hope not. He makes me nervous. Since our family is not registered for foster care, we had to give his kids up. The girl lives with a foster family, and the boy is in the system, like an actual establishment for kids with no parents. They're both severely affected by all of this happening. The girl lives with a foster family and the boy is in the system. Why did they split them up? How callous is the foster system? The foster system is very complicated. After being a part of it, take my word that there is lots of restrictions and laws that hold people back from doing the most moral thing. My neighbor. She unalived 3 of her children 30 years ago, drowned them in their bathtub. She was given electric shock therapy and was released. She had another kid and a couple of years later drowned that one too. For whatever reason, she is not in jail and lives next to us. Not really a threat, as she moves as slow as molasses, and she drowned all of her kids during bath time. She did not go after other kids in the neighborhood. Just about every day you can hear her scream and scream. This could be at 2 in the afternoon or in the street in the middle of the night. For whatever reason, she is not in jail. I'm really curious as to how that's possible. My uncle saw an angel in a tree which told him to travel to Russia to find a wife. He did, had a kid with her, and they have since divorced. She's actually fairly cool. Lots more crazy and abusive stories about him from my mom's childhood. He's now a semi-successful televangelist in northern Maine. What is his name? I spent a good amount of time in northern Maine. A friend I grew up with is schizophrenics. He heard voices in his head, and barricaded himself in the apartment thinking the secret police was after him. He was committed at age 17, this was in the 90s, and has been in and out of hospital for 20 years. They finally found the right meds, and now he spends his days watching TV, chain smoking and looking for feds out the window of his tiny apartment. His fingers are yellow from the smokes. The meds make him really overweight. What's truly sad about this though, is that he is a literary genius. He had a good period about 10 years ago and wrote an amazing manuscript and had offers on the table from major publishers, but he burned it because it was too much for him. I've read parts of it. It was brilliant. I'm gutted thinking what he could have become. Always have to wonder how many masterpieces are stuck in the minds of people that will never be able to share them with the world. My sister-in-law's sister is a paranoid schizophrenic who has gone off her drugs. She has many conversations with her son and has made threats. She is no longer allowed to know where her son is. In fact, when she had her ex-husband got divorced, she lost custody. The judge said she'd only be allowed visitation rights if she went and got counseling. Which didn't happen? She also claims to be married to 3 men at once, all of whom are famous, and apparently stalked a cast member of Star Trek at one point. Poor woman. Isn't your sister-in-law's sister your sister-in-law, or your wife? It's the sister of his brother's wife. My current girlfriend currently suffers from a wide array of mental disorders, but one of them is dissociative personality disorder, essentially multiple personality disorder, which she has a second identity that will come out irregularly. It's not really terrifying, but sometimes it's a little off-putting. Just to clarify, she's not really crazy. I mean, she lives an everyday life. Plus the personalities isn't as terrible as you think. She's just suffered from traumatizing events one after another in her life, and it's simply a fracture in her head. Before you ask, her personality isn't a homicidal or anything like that. But to anyone not well informed on it, they would probably just consider her crazy. Is your girlfriend's other personality single?
Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.